Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we explore Eirgrid's approach to community benefit funds. I am Dee Butler, Head of Growth at Submit.com, with special guest Avril Wilson. Avril is the Senior Engagement Specialist with Eirgrid. She heads up the community benefit funds and community forum elements with the public engagement team. She has nearly 3 years at Eirgrid now, with extensive experience working in stakeholder engagement and working with communities over the last 20 years. Before she joined Eirgrid, she was the coordinating manager of Tipperary Public Participation Network and has other experience working in community development associations and family resource centres, where she has experience of leader funding in both assessing and applying for funding. Then we have Elaine Barrett. Elaine is the Community Benefit Fund Coordinator with CCAD Partnership. She has worked at CCAD as part of the Renewable Energy team since August 2016, and her role involves supporting community groups in assessing funding through an actively managed programme of social and community support funds, while also upholding the core values of the funders. And then we have Emma O'Mahony from EMCO. She is a senior project manager with a background in funds administration and treasury. Emma works closely with clients to design and administer community benefit funds. Her strong values for community and transparency ensure efficient dispersal of funds for all their clients. Thank you all for joining us. And a little bit later on, we will also have Neil O'Driscoll, of course, our COO here at Submit.com. So just to get the ball rolling, Avril, if you can give us a quick overview of the Eirgrid Community Benefit Funds.
Morning, everyone, and thank you, Dee, for inviting me to come along this morning to take part in this webinar, which will look at Eirgrid's approach to community benefit funding. So, as Dee has introduced me, I'm Avril Wilson, and I work on the public engagement team as an engagement specialist. So, predominantly, my role is around looking after community benefit funds and also establishing community forums wherever we have great infrastructure. So I suppose our main focus with the new community benefit policy, which I can discuss a little bit later, is around Eirgrid's engagement strategy. So Eirgrid's public engagement strategy reinforces our company's commitment to putting communities at the heart of decision making through what we call early engagement, and we do this through establishing community forums at a very early point on our grid infrastructure projects. And we continue to engage with communities and stakeholders throughout the project lifetime. So for us, it's around social acceptance and building the capacity of the community, and indeed working in partnership with people like our fund administrators, CCAD and EMCO. So I know one of the things you asked me to talk about today, Dee, was our new approach to community benefit. So under this new approach, our new community benefit policy has tripled in value. So and this is also released over 3 phases, which I can talk a little bit about later as well. And the new community benefit policy has 3 streams. So we have funding under a community stream, funding for projects under sustainability stream, and funding, very importantly, for projects under a biodiversity stream. So each of these streams has equal values. And again, for us, it's around leveraging partnerships with funding, talking to SEAI, like other grant-making organisations, local authorities, and bringing on board PPNs. So what we want to do is go out there and inform communities about this fund and let them know, what the funding can do for them. By that, we're putting participation at the core. As I've mentioned, we have community forums where we establish as early as possible when we announce that we're going to build new grid infrastructure. So our community forums, we work with the community groups. So we ask local community groups to come on board, local representatives, Chamber of Commerce groups. We establish a forum and we work with the forum with an independent chairperson. So all these forums are chaired independently. And we've been working with the community forums across projects for the last 3 to 4 years. So the idea of having these community forums is that we can look at building a community benefit strategy with the members of the community forum and indeed other members of the community that we might engage with. And again, I can talk a little bit about our consultation and engagement process and that community benefit strategy maybe a little bit later on as well. Yeah. So I suppose really importantly for us in this new community benefit policy, we have a big emphasis on the sustainable development goals, and all projects that apply for funding must be aligned to one or more of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So we've been working with community groups around that and capacity building. So we've been doing some training with our community forums before we announce a community benefit fund around the Sustainable Development Goals, to ensure that communities are aware of them, know what they do, know what they are, and that when they're thinking about projects and their community business plans, that they can start to think, well, what SDG goal can they meet with their project? So I suppose ultimately we want to leave a positive legacy in the communities. So we know when we go out to build grid infrastructure that there will be some disruption over the lifetime of the project within the community. And we want to give back to communities by having this community benefit fund, and hopefully in turn leave the communities in a better place than before the project had started out. So our new policy, as I've said, has tripled in value. And again, that has the 3 streams. So there is the same value for a community, the same value for sustainability, and the same value for biodiversity. So this slide here just kind of explains to you that we set up the community forums, as I've explained, as early as possible within our 6-step grid infrastructure project development. So we appoint a community benefit fund administrator as soon as we get planning consent for a project. So we start then to work with the community benefit fund administrator, wherever, whoever that may be. So for instance, it's CCAD on the Celtic Interconnector project, and it's EMCO on the Clash of Unes and Manway project, and Laois Kilkenny project. So we start to work with the community. The first thing we do is bring in the fund administrator to meet the community groups and to meet the community forum, and we start to look at designing a community benefit strategy for that project area. So what we mean by this is we go out to consultation, and on the Celtic Interconnector project we have had over 500 consultations back in. We met with various different community groups, whether that was one-to-one clinics or workshops down in the East Cork area. And we look at designing a community benefit fund based on that consultation process. So we take all the different information and feedback that we've gotten from the communities, and we design that community benefit strategy. And then in turn, that strategy is endorsed by the community forum. And then from that strategy, we develop what we call our community benefit fund guidelines. So as soon as we have our fund guidelines ready, we will open the fund, and we usually leave a fund open for between 10 to 12 weeks for community groups to apply, depending on the time of the year. For instance, on the Celtic Interconnector project, we left it open from about the end of June to mid-September. Just we were very aware that this was a busy time for community groups, or that people will be on holidays. So we wanted to ensure that we had enough weeks for community groups to apply for the funding. And throughout that process, then the community groups were supported by the fund administrators, whether it was questions around the application form or what best funding stream to apply for, and maybe how to align their project towards the SDGs. So then the fund will be announced then, we hope before Christmas, on the Celtic Interconnector Fund, and that's 40% of the fund will be released on phase 1. So the Celtic Interconnector Fund in total is a 2.4 million fund, but phase 1 of the fund, which is 40%, is 960,000. So as soon as we break ground or construction starts on that project, we will release the fund, which is the step that we're at the moment. So then midway through construction, we will release 30% of the fund, which we call phase 2. So that might look like midway through cable jointing or line stringing, depending on the type of project that we're talking about. And then finally, then when the project goes live, we will release phase 3 of the fund, which is the final 30% of the fund. So when we say when the project goes live, we mean when it's energized and when electricity is live going through. So yeah, that's the community benefit milestones, Dee. Thanks very much.
So Avril, in terms of who can apply for this benefit fund, do you want to talk me through?
Yeah, so the fund guidelines predominantly will outline exactly all the details, but we're really talking about any community group, any non-for-profit organisation or local enterprise. So the kind of initiatives that we're talking about, that people can apply for equipment, maybe it's a retrofit of a community hall. We have funded some community groups to do like a cultus where they had a music festival. We've also funded an outdoor swimming pool where the pool will be generated by solar panels. So that's like really amazing. one to talk about in terms of sustainability. Sports clubs looking at walkways around their grounds or enhancements to their facilities. So predominantly we are also talking about projects that we want the Community Benefit Fund to go to those projects that are nearest the grid infrastructure that we're building. So we're predominantly looking at a 2-kilometre project area of benefit from the line.
Okay, so Avril, in terms of the governance structure then of the Community Benefit Fund, can you talk us through that and what it looks like?
Sure, no problem. So our Community Benefit Programme Board will have overall responsibility for the Community Benefit Fund and the policy and the programme within Eirgrid. So as I've already mentioned, Eirgrid will appoint an external fund administrator who looks after the Community Benefit Fund and administers it on our behalf. So my team, the public engagement team, will work closely with the fund administrators around that fund, around the community benefit strategy design and reporting on all the various different steps of the fund, and indeed the evaluation of each of the projects that come in as well. And then ultimately applications for all funds are endorsed by the Community Benefit Programme Board within Eirgrid. And they will have ultimate responsibility for the distribution of funds and sign off to say what community groups receive the funding. But again, this will be done because we have an independent evaluation committee who will assess all the projects that come in, and those projects will be put forward with a final summary report to this Community Benefit Programme Board within Eirgrid. So we, as we've mentioned already, we use the platform Submit.com. So all applications for funding go through that application process on Submit.com. So it's a very user-friendly process for people. So it's all done online, but the fund administrator is there to help people if they have any problems uploading files or videos. We encourage all community groups to take a little video and send in snippets to make their application a bit more live and current, and it encourages people just to get other community members from their organisation involved in the actual application process as well. So Submit.com has been a really useful platform for us in terms of that. That people can upload the videos. They also can upload all their invoices, their quotations. And we've also been working with you guys as well in Submit.com around if for instance, we had any changes to a project. So what we've developed with yourselves, the community fund administrators and ourselves, is what we now call is a project change request form. So all this can be done on Submit.com, which for us, which is great because, you know, in terms of an audit perspective, the governance is there, there's a paper trail, everything can be captured. And also what we do on Submit.com as well is we evaluate. So we have the independent evaluation committee, which is made up of members of the Eirgrid public engagement team and the fund administrator and an external person who might have experience of assessing funds from another area will come on board to be part of that evaluation panel. So we all evaluate independently on Submit.com, and all of our results are recorded and scored there, and we can all leave a comment or a query or ask questions or document if we want to ask the fund administrator to check out something with a community group or an applicant. So in terms of the audit and the governance process, it's really great for us because it's a one-stop shop. Everything is there and everything is recorded. And as well as that, we have a structure in place whereby we can give access rights and permissions to various different levels. So Eirgrid ultimately own the Submit.com, but then we would give access rights to our fund administrators and then in turn to the evaluation panel members to assess the projects.
So yes, Avril, as you said, we've mentioned the fund administrators at this point now. So I think it'll be nice to bring in our other two guests. So Elaine, if I may start with you, if you want to tell us a little bit more about your current role at CCAD and how you became involved with the Eirgrid Community Benefit Fund.
Thanks, Dee, and thank you to Submit.com. I'm delighted to be here today. So my name is Elaine Barrett and I'm the Community Benefit Fund Coordinator with CCAD. I've worked in CCAD as part of the renewable energy team since August 2016, and my role involves supporting the community groups in accessing funding through an actively managed programme of social and community support funds, while also upholding the core values of the funder, which in the case of the Celtic Interconnector Community Fund would be Eirgrid. A little bit of background on CCAD Partnership. So we're a local development company based in Middleton, And there are several programs ran, such as the SICAP program, the Leader program, with TOOS, RSS, also have community benefit funds. So several different public programs and then community benefit funds also. So CCAD was appointed as the grant administrator to the Celtic Interconnector Community Benefit Fund, and our role really was to bridge that gap between the community and Eirgrid. So we managed the Community Benefit Fund, supporting the communities throughout the process. As Avril mentioned, the initial work with the communities and the community engagement, right through to fund opening, through the fund opening process, supporting groups as much or as little as they needed, through to fund closing, while also reporting back to Eirgrid during that time period on any community engagements, community activity, and updates throughout the fund opening and closing period. Then our role, once the fund closes, moves into preparing the applications for evaluation, sending them onto the evaluation panel and supporting them through that process, right through to decisions being made and eventually moving on to notifying all the applicants, successful application awards, grant amounts, and then the next stage would be the claim phase when the projects are completed. So it's a really, really interesting role, and we're delighted to be involved with the Community Interconnector. And there's a huge benefit to the communities surrounding the cable, and we're excited to get to the next stage and see those projects start happening.
I know. And again, I suppose with any of the programs, there's phases, there's different stages of the whole application process. It is quite involved. How do you manage Submit.com, or how do you use it as a tool, I suppose, really, in order to manage a program such as this?
So an online tool like Submit.com is really, really helpful. I suppose first you have complete transparency, so we can see live on a day-to-day basis how many applications have been submitted, how many are in drafts, at what stage an applicant is in the process. If they're stuck in some stage or they have a query, we can log in and we can see their application, see where they might be stuck, where they might need a little bit of help. It's also really helpful from a point of view of reporting to Eirgrid, so we can give them daily, weekly updates. We can give them very high level reports, and we can also give them very specific reports, like Avril mentioned on the SDGs. So we can target, specifically how many applicants applied to which sustainable development goal, the amounts applied for. It's a really, really helpful tool. It's quite easy to report back. It's quite easy to see everything, and it's quite helpful for the groups as well to be able to contact us, and we can see the information that they already have in place, and be very, very helpful when they need that.
If I may bring you in here, so Emma O'Mahony's from EMCO, you're the project manager there. Do you want to talk about any of the case studies or projects that you've been working with in relation with Eirgrid?
Yeah, Dee, I'd love to, if you'd like to bring up some of the slides there.
Yeah,
I can just give us a little overview of EMCO. As I mentioned, we're a very collaborative, multidisciplinary team. We operate and deliver projects in lots of different sectors, arts and culture and tourism, places and spaces, sustainability and climate action, health, community, education, innovation. So we've been delighted to work with Eirgrid, and we've built up a very good relationship with them, and working with the community groups over the last couple of years. As I said, it's a very worthwhile project to be working on. Again, thanks for having me here today. Working with Eirgrid for the last 2.5 years on the Clashview and Dunmanway and the Laois Kilkenny funds. So we've supported about 46 projects there. So some of them obviously completed now when we're coming to the end of the Clashview and Dunmanway funding period. So there's been, I struggled to even pick how many I was going to talk about today, because I know we're short on time, but I know your brief really was, talking about successful projects, and I thought maybe we'd quickly discuss, what constitutes a successful project.
Yes.
I suppose the first thing was that the application process is designed for success, and I know when we first talked about with Eirgrid using Submit.com, like we felt that would meet that goal, that's the Eirgrid's goal of a community friendly application process, and also leaving that legacy in the community. So the idea was that we use Submit.com as we said, it's a very user-friendly platform, and that the groups would find it easy to use and not be daunted by the whole prospect of applying to a grant fund. So And if we talk about maybe, successful projects, what were the kind of the characteristics of those successful projects? We would notice that groups that would engage with the information sessions, as Elaine has mentioned there, MCO would have conducted a similar information sessions in the application windows in the local community, and also conducted one-to-one sessions. So applicants that actually avail of that, and really kind of absorb all that kind of information on those tend to be successful. And also, if we look at how they actually complete the application form, successful applicants who provide clear answers on topics such as the location of the communities that are impacted by your project. Obviously, that's that is the goal of these community benefit funds, that the communities that are most impacted by are the ones that will benefit from these community benefit funds. So clear answers on that, and obviously describe your project, having clear answers on the project scope is also very helpful. And then I think one of the ones we found as the funds went through, that to be very clear on your project priorities. We would have found that we would encourage groups to look at the development plans they have in place, and try and show on their application form what the priorities are in their projects. So for instance, they might want to do a number of different things, but maybe try and prioritize on those items on their application form. Also have projects link to the fund themes, which Avril has already addressed, the sustainability, community and the biodiversity themes. Also projects should try and explain how their projects are linked to the sustainable development goals. And I think you've mentioned it as well, Avril, that it always helps when projects have photos and videos that brings their projects to life and what they're trying to achieve in the community. And as well, then we would also suggest that successful projects, are prepared with their documentation that's required for application. So again, that kind of goes back to engaging with the information sessions and the one-to-one sessions to be clear about what they need on their application forms. So if you want to click on to the next slide. So this is one of the very good successful projects that Eirgrid funded through the Clashview Dunmanway Community Benefit Fund. So this is a community-based voluntary organisation, the Macroom Senior Citizens, and basically they're providing a Meals on Wheels and care and repair service for the elderly in their homes in the local area. And their delivery van was very old and needed to be replaced, and again, they'd obviously they wanted to replace that, and they wanted to also reduce their carbon footprint by buying an electric vehicle. So they did that, and it's been very successful. It's increased the efficiency of their service, and it has reduced their costs. We have a little social media post there by Pat there that they delivered there in May their 5,000th meal. Yeah, with the van, and they've also had significant reduction in costs as well in running vehicles. So that's one of the great success stories. I think you'd agree, Avril, on that project there. I mentioned that one as well. That was funded by the Laois Kilkenny Community Benefit Fund. They received 40,000 euros in funding for solar panels to heat their swimming pool. So you can imagine the cost must be extremely high to heat an outdoor swimming pool. So that'll be a very successful project, and it'll allow as well. They have big plans for the amenity area around the swimming pool. So a lot of these projects, you'll find the funding from Eirgrid kickstarts other elements of projects that they want to achieve. So that's a good example of that. So this group is a Scout group, one of the smaller funded projects, and they received 5,000 euros. And the idea here was that they just wanted to buy some more equipment that had a greener theme to it. So they bought some solar paneling, and they also bought a defibrillator. They were buying some reusable utensils and materials, and they were using it then as an opportunity, I suppose, to educate their scouts as well about greener technology and importance of climate action. So that was a nice project that got funded. You mentioned this one, Avril, the Spink Comóltas, where there was an event there back in March, where the Spink Musical Festival. was one sponsored by Eirgrid or funded by Eirgrid. So the festival had competitions, master classes, and a concert. It looks a beautiful event there in the local church. This then is kind of just an example of a sports club. You know, there'd be a number of sports clubs that would apply to the fund. A lot of them would again have, you know, larger plans in place and would prioritize certain things they want to get started on their projects. And in this instance, this group wanted to put up some security fencing, and then they're planning to introduce a walkway and a running track around their GA pitch as well. So there's a lot of examples of that as well, where I think even just when community groups start to look at funding, you know, they start to develop plans, and you know, it does kickstart a lot of different things for them, which is great to see. And I suppose as fund administrators, we're in a great position that, as Elaine mentioned, we're talking to these people so regularly, we're getting to know them, and you know, you are seeing the great benefits that we have, you know, of these projects. And I suppose that the few that I've picked out there are just an example of give you a range of the type of things that that's possible, really, you know, with this community benefit funding.
I mean, Emma touched on it there when she mentioned the electric vehicle down in Macroom. Like that community group there have delivered 12,000 meals in May. That was their stat there on the slide that Emma shared, to a cost of, I think they said they had 12,000 meals and so many kilometres done, but to a cost of like €560. So that's all it's costing that community group there now to run their electric vehicle, but yet they can do this. So, you know, it's about thinking outside the box, thinking cleverly. I know the community group on the Laois Kilkenny project, the outdoor amenity, the outdoor swimming pool, like they're working towards a sustainable energy community, and they're looking to leverage other funds and build on their project there now. So our little pot of money that we were able to give them is only just a stepping stone and a start to, you know, what more that community can achieve. So look, that's where we're at with it, and we just really want to support communities, and that's what we've been trying to do over the last 3 to 4 years within Eirgrid, and build that capacity with community groups at all times, you know, engaging with communities throughout the project lifetime. And you know, the community forums aren't just about the community benefit fund. It also enables us to be able to give project updates as the project is, you know, going through and being developed and designed, and construction commences. So it also enables us to talk to the communities about the various different impacts it's going to have while the project is under construction as well. So, you know, it's a two-way flow of information. Community forum members are asked to bring information to us from the local community, and we'll bring that back to the technical team within Eirgrid, to the project managers. You know, project managers often attend these community forum meetings, whereby the community representatives can ask questions and can find out what's going on with the project and get the various updates.
So in terms of the projects that you have done now over the last number of years, and now using a platform like Submit.com, what kind of benefits or advantages do you have perhaps in using a platform like ourselves? Avril first, or Elaine or Emma? I suppose you're all hands-on at this point now using it.
I might come in then, and the ladies can come in then. I suppose from Eirgrid's perspective, given that we have the fund, for us, it's just been amazing. It's a one-stop shop. It ticks all the correct boxes for us in terms of our governance and our auditing procedures. We talked about giving the permission rights earlier as well. So it enables me within the Eirgrid public engagement team to give different fund administrators, like for example, we have 2 different administrators here today on our multi-supplier framework, and I can give access rights to CCAD for a particular fund, and I can give access rights to MCO for a different fund as well. So for us, it's great. As a huge part of the governance as well is around the evaluation committee and the evaluation panel and evaluating the project. So having all of that recorded on that one platform, again, as I say, a one-stop shop for us, you know, it's really great. But I know the fund administrators will probably have much more to say, because they work on it day to day, daily, and with the community groups and the applicants. So I'll hand over to either Elaine or Emma to come in. And thanks very much, Dee, for having us here today. It's great.
Thank you, Avril. Thank you very much. Okay, so Elaine, as you're sitting next to Avril there, I keep picking on you next, but yeah, on the day-to-day, I suppose, using the platform itself, what are the takeaways that you yourself have using the platform?
So day to day for me, I think it's being able to have that information in real time, really to see, you know, how many applications are there, how many are submitted. It's really useful coming towards the end of a fund closing to see if there are communities that maybe we're not seeing many applications in from, and then we can target that database. It's being able to reach out to groups that maybe there's a few days left in the fund and you see they still have that application in there, and to reach out and say, look, we can see where you are, can we help? So it's being able to be really, really helpful for them, and being able to really clearly see exactly where we're at right through the process.
Lovely. Thanks, Elaine. And Emma, do you have anything to add to that?
Using Submit.com, we knew that it's more than just the application form, that we could actually create a grant administration tool from it. So like I use it in that way, that I find it's very helpful when a grant drawdown comes in. I have the whole story in front of me in terms of the application form, all the documentation that's been sent in, and it's easy to toggle between the forms. Similarly, all the documentation are held in a certain way that you can just toggle between that as well. I also love the tagging functionality in Submit.com. You can build that to your internal processes. So saying in, you know, process of review, it's approved, it's been released, you know, and it's so easy to do that. And you know, if you're depending on what your own internal processes are and approval procedures are, you know, you can build your process around those tags. And also the grant tracking functionality is really helpful. So the fact that you can you know, certain projects may not draw down money all at once. So there's a really good tracking system there as well for that. So so yeah, I think it's been a really successful tool for us, and it's, you know, it's really helped you know, the ease at which we're able to review a project from right from application right through to evaluation of project to the end. So
I know we'll have Neil up next, who's going to go in and do a walkthrough of an example of a Submit platform, showing you on some of the things that we've mentioned, the granular permissions, perhaps the tagging, certainly, and more importantly, the reporting and the governance and how you can manage all of that. Any questions, please do let us know at the end of the session, and we can reach out and speak to Avril, Elaine or Emma again and come back to you separately. And now I'll invite Neil O'Driscoll to join us on screen. Neil, thank you for being here today.